Welcome to the Mojo Market Report. Here's your hosts, Dave Sturchio and Chris Gueci.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mojo Market Report right here on a Tuesday. It is Dave Sturchio. It is Chris Gueci over there. It is A5. Anthony behind the glass here at Chop Studios. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Hope everybody enjoyed the football last night, which, again, if you're a 49er fan, sure, you enjoyed that football last night. If you're a Monday Night Football fan, you're like, that was hard to watch. I couldn't get behind it. I just knew from the rip. I said it yesterday on the other show. I said, Niners will probably blow them out, and the Cardinals look bad without Kyler Murray, but then again, they look bad with Kyler Murray. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't get to watch the game from the start, so by the time I put it on, it was already not a game. So I kind of just watched it sporadically. It was on in the background, but I was doing some other stuff. I was
decorating the house, a little Christmas season,
a little something like
that. Anyway, before we get into everything we want to get into as far as the game and some of the news around the NFL, some news yesterday that broke right as people were kind of driving home, a little bit of an afternoon drive type situation where Robert Saleh took the podium. And officially, he wouldn't commit to Zach Wilson to be the starting quarterback for the Jets against the Bears. We said yesterday on this show that it was time. It was like he just wasn't developing at a quick enough rate for the Jets to salvage this season. They're 6-4, so it's like the season's not lost. But Zach Wilson is the reason why they're not like 8-2.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm looking up Mike White's.
How's he doing?
I'm pretty sure Mike White had a nice little surge yesterday.
What about Joe Flacco?
I think Mike White is the backup now. I think Joe Flacco was officially pushed. That was announced a couple weeks back.
Yeah, Flacco's been inactive, actually.
Right now, Mike White is up 33% in the Mojo Market, so he's the top mover of the night. Look, I don't know that Mike White's going to be the starter. I think Robert Saleh had to walk back on his comments that he made after the game, saying that it's not. The quarterback is basically Zach Wilson. But then 24 hours later, I'm sure after listening to some of the defensive players and then watching back the press conference, because at that time
and the tape of the game,
at that time, I wonder if Robert Saleh even had knowledge of the fact that Zach Wilson.
No, they were getting interviewed simultaneously. Post game,
but it wasn't simultaneous because that would be at the same time. But
what I mean is like in the same time frame.
In succession. So if like Robert Saleh's behind, he's not getting to see the news come out yet of what his quarterback is saying until later. So at the time of his interview, he may not, or it may have been Saleh first for all we know.
Truth. Right? It usually is the head coach first.
So, all right, there you go. So Robert Saleh didn't know that Zach Wilson was going to completely shit the bed when he got up in front of the podium. And then 24 hours later, he can't commit. I think he's only doing that to pander a little bit. I don't think they're going to pull the plug on Zach Wilson just yet. But you could see a short leash in that game, and Mike White might end up getting some PT if the Jets' offense doesn't click.
I think you got to make a statement, and you have to tell this kid, hey, man, your job is not safe here.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's what I think.
And by starting Mike White, even on a one-game basis, you can get the fan base back on Zach Wilson's side if Mike White is really bad. You know what I mean? Like, all right, man, just put it back in.
At 6-4, you have to really look and see.
And they got the Bears team coming in.
Does Mike White give them a better chance to win than Zach Wilson? I'm not sure he does yet.
I don't know, man.
It's not like Mike White has lit the world on fire. He had that one really good game against the Bengals.
And then the Jets fans went nuts, put him in Canton. You know what I mean?
So here's my issue with I agree, they need to send the kid a message, but benching him might be too much of a message because we clearly see that he doesn't know how to handle himself in these types of situations.
And he hasn't walked back anything yet.
Maybe the hard lesson should just be what they're doing now and not committing to him and making him earn it throughout the week. But if they bench him, I think that could be a situation where the player gets embarrassed, and when a player that thinks that he's not part of the problem gets benched, then you're going to have it might be worse for his development, and that's the ultimate thing. You want Zach Wilson to work out still.
Down 19% in a month, 12% last week,
I don't know, man.
5% overnight. So things are not trending in the right direction for a Zach Wilson. And, of course, here on a local front, you would hope the kid gets it right, walks back his comments, says, like, look, man, heat of the moment, sorry, would never throw anybody under the bus, something. He hasn't seen. What is it with this New York athletes that just don't know how to apologize? But anyway, that's enough of Mike White. We'll get into the game now for last night's top movers of the night. And, of course, the 49ers had their way, and we start with a George Kittle. Now, George Kittle, it's fun to talk about him because he's a fun dude to watch. He's very high energy. But George Kittle has himself a day last night, 2 touchdowns. He's up 2.43%. Right now is the interesting part about George Kittle is that he's the 4th tight end listed on the Mojo Market, right? And he's right above somebody we'll talk about later, Kyle Pitts. and he's right behind Zach Ertz. With Ertz's injury, I think there's a good chance that before the end of the season, and if this keeps going the way they're going and Jimmy G keeps finding him, Kittle could find himself as a top 3 tight end in the Mojo market.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers offense right now, Jimmy G, 4 touchdown passes on the heels of...
Let's not disregard Jimmy G's a really good night. Conservative on the yardage, but a lot on the yak.
That's 49er football.
It is.
And right now, we're heading towards those months or that point in the year where the 49ers seemingly start to click and they're able to play more their brand of their football where what they're looking to do. They're going to run the ball a lot in the second half, and George Kittle is a great run-blocking tight end, so he's on the field at all times.
Oh, yeah, he's
I think George Kittle, I'm worried more so about the injuries in the long term, but as far as the rest of the season goes, if he's healthy, which looking the way he played yesterday, he seems to be, and then getting a deep run in the playoffs out of a tight end and George Kittle being heavily involved in that offense, which I think it's going to be sporadic for him. And you even see it. The targets weren't there. He was very touchdown dependent yesterday.
Yeah.
So you could expect the same similar target share to George Kittle, but because this offense has so many weapons, I think they're going to be really dominant in the red zone. And looking to Kittle in the red zone after not feeding him from 20 to 20, I think it's going to become more prevalent, as we saw yesterday.
Yeah, so George Kittle obviously has himself a really good yak night. He caught the ball a couple times and just showed that he has the burners. And again, I've always liked George Kittle, the guy. Did you see him in the pregame? Got himself a custom mask, a lucha mask from
George
Pentagon.
George Kittle plays the role. He does it all.
He really does.
He's an off-the-field guy, and he has that character about him, which I think is why you may even see him as high as he is in the market because he has a lot of fans.
He's likable. Speaking of likable, staying with the 49ers offense, we're talking about a guy who just consistently, blindly, in his sleep, has 100 all-purpose yards every week, and that's Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel last night runs the ball for 37 yards off 3 rushes, 7 catches, 57 yards, like I said, 100-plus on the all-purpose. Deebo Samuel is the guy that you know what you're going to get out of him every week. He's just a gadget. He's a little bit more than a gadget guy. But what I will say is you just have to account for him at all times if you're the opposing defense.
Yeah, we were worried about the usage for Deebo now that CMC was there, and I guess it's still a little bit down.
His rush attempts are down.
When I saw that Deebo was a mover and he was on his way up, I expected to see a little bit better of a stat line when I look back. But I think what they're kind of pouring cold water on here is the fact that CMC is going to completely eat into Deebo's usage. We were able to see Deebo kind of shine a little bit yesterday, and that was a good thing. It was his best game, I think, since McCaffrey's come over, if I'm not mistaken.
As far as stat line is concerned? Yeah, he's most involved he's been most of it's just crazy. I
want to look at his rushes for the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it took into the second half to get guys like Elijah Mitchell on the field, a touch. And, the sideline reporter, they kind of discussed it. They said, look, how do we get Elijah Mitchell more touches? And, you're looking at Shanahan and he's like, look, there's a lot of talent on this team. It's like there's only one ball to go around, and that's the scary part when you're whether it be the Mojo Market or fantasy football. There's only one ball to go around.
And this is the second straight week with Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey playing where Elijah Mitchell has out-carried him.
Out-carried and outgained him. So it's look, Elijah Mitchell is another one to keep your eye on. But the 49er offense, you can't go wrong with anybody on the 49er offense right now. Even Brandon Ayuk scores twice on, 3 catches or something? He was barely involved as far as the targets are concerned, but he's there in the end zone. It just doesn't stop for the San Francisco 49ers.
A very interesting question, and I think everybody expected this as it happened. Is what's going to happen with Trey Lance. What are they going to do with Jimmy G? If they go and make another deep run, and it's their second straight deep playoff run, or really third.
He's going to say goodbye again. He's going to say goodbye to the fans for a second time at the end of the year. Look, I said it last year. I said, how do you just move? Trey's our guy. Why? Why was he the guy? Because of the contract at the time? And you're paying Jimmy G all this money.
Well, no,
the draft capital that you spent to get Trey Lance.
They traded up and the third pick.
Why can't that be a good situation to be in if you're the Niners? Why can't you just be like, look, we moved up thinking that we didn't have a quarterback in Jimmy G, and oh, by the way, we might.
I think the understanding is that if Trey Lance was playing right now, and this is what the 49ers were thinking, they would be better. That's what their expectation was.
Small sample size in the beginning. I can't make that assumption.
We can't, and we still can't say for better or for worse. We have no idea
it's
because
nuts.
we didn't get to see Trey Lance. But Trey Lance, what he brings to the table athletically, and you're seeing what Justin Fields is able to do, even though they're not winning. much better supporting cast in San Francisco. You're seeing what Jalen Hurts is able to do.
But here's my question.
And he's bringing that element to the table on an offense that likes to run.
Agreed. But look at the final score last night. The Niners beat them 38-10. What's the final score with Trey Lance?
38-10 maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
I have no idea.
But what I'm saying is, does he make them that much better?
When their offense doesn't get going, it's clearly obvious the person that's holding that offense back. Most of the time, it's been Jimmy G.
I don't think he does enough wrong for me to be like, you know what? Come on out, kid. It's time for Trey. I don't know. That's a discussion for
Jimmy G makes
the springtime,
some egregious errors. If you've watched every 49er game, trust me, you know.
I've seen him. But
and there's something to be said that he cannot stretch the field, and that does bite them late in the season in certain games.
Or maybe he doesn't have the people to stretch the field. Well, I know Debo's an underneath guy. I've never seen him actually, just take the top off and just run a fly
I find
route.
it hard pressed to think that just Jimmy G throughout his entire career is like just hasn't had a receiver that could stretch the field. Debo could stretch the field.
Well, I understand he could stretch the field in that regard.
Not
what
like
I'm
a
saying,
blow the top off the defense type guy, but they've had those. Everybody's got a fast guy here or there.
I'm well aware. All I'm saying is if I'm the 49ers, it's okay to concede that you made not even a mistake. You just assessed your guy wrong. You're winning football games. You got to the NFC title game with this guy last year, and now you're 6-4 in first place in the NFC West.
I don't think that they assessed it wrong, though. I think that they knew what they had with Jimmy G, and that's why they weren't willing to just get rid of him for nothing. They could have gotten rid of Jimmy G for nothing. They were willing to keep him in town, even if they couldn't get a restructure. I don't think they were going to cut him. They were able to work it out, and they understood the talent that they had and what he brought to the team. That's why he's still on the team.
The Jimmy G Show brought to you by Mojo. But anyway, let's move on to somebody.
Next year, I don't know, though.
That's what I'm saying. This is a conversation that we'll be having right here at this desk, this time. Well, not this time next year. Probably around the springtime where we're like, what's going to happen now? All right. One guy that fell off the face of the earth, it is officially not Rondale Moore season. We thought for sure it would be Rondale Moore. And look, we talk about this guy because of the fact that his one rush for -6 yards was the only stat line this guy had last night. He gets hurt. It's just like one of those things, man. You're looking at Rondale Moore, and he's not the 2. He's not the 3. Like, we saw some emergence out of Dortch last night. And of course, DeAndre Hopkins, like you said yesterday, in a jokingly manner, like, oh, Kyler's not playing? DeAndre's playing. And he, again, Hopkins 8. But what I will say about Moore is he's just not that guy. You know what I mean? And it's like we all make jokes, inside jokes. There's memes out there. It's always Rondale Moore season. It's clearly not, man. The guy's fallen from grace. And I wouldn't even touch this dude at all. It's just,
See, I expected a better showing out of him yesterday because, I don't know, I believe in Rondale Moore. I still do. But I do agree with you that he's more of a gadget type. He's definitely not a 1. He's certainly not a 2. He could definitely play the slot. I think he could grow into that role. But more so, I see him as a punt returner, using him in gimmick plays out of the backfield. And he's going to have splash games, but he's not going to be the consistent target guy. He's not going to get 8 or 9 targets a game. And if he is, then the offense is going to be going well. Cliff Kingsbury is not
should be fired, by the way.
He's not a good head coach, and I think it's becoming abundantly
what does he
clear.
have? What does he have on his ownership? That's what I want to know.
He had a good run last year. He was almost in the coach of the year.
When they went 7-0, and then they lost to the Packers, their record since then. Their record since then, I believe, is like 8-13.
Believe me, I know.
Maybe even less. It's bad.
Yeah, and if you look at their record historically,
Troy Aikman, who obviously,
if you look at his record, even dating back to college after a certain date, I think after Thanksgiving, it's never been good. He's loses all his bowl games. So yeah, Cliff Kingsbury, I think the ship sailed on him. A college team will be glad to take him back to the NCAA
what I'm saying
ranks.
Is Aikman is obviously one of my heroes as a child, but on the broadcast, the gloves are always off when it comes to Troy. He said that this team is piss poor and they're not even playing for this coach anymore. At the end of that game last night, there was a couple attempted tackles that weren't attempted. You know what I mean? They're just not playing good football. This guy, Kingsbury, to me, is not the kind of guy that will rally the troops. He's young, and everybody was really excited about that aspect. Here comes a young, smart, offensive-minded coach. Here we go. And it just never panned out. And I'm going to tell you right now, as the most boldest thing as I possibly could say on this show, without sounding like completely, not biased, but just judgmental, Kyler Murray's contract might be the worst contract in football history. History.
It's early to say that just yet.
The fact that he's not on the field right now is
it's early.
Bull.
If he's injured, he's injured.
Yeah, but
what you're gonna
when he's on the field, he's not even on the field.
Okay,
you know what
fair,
I'm saying? That he
fair.
just doesn't.
So there's two layers to this. There's 2 layers. Right now, the Kyler Murray contract isn't looking great. For a fact, The second layer of that, though, is that you almost have to, if we're sitting here and saying how bad Cliff Kingsbury is, right? Mm-hmm. Then you almost have to give the quarterback a pass, because if it's the head coach,
that was the hand-chosen dude
by the coach,
right?
So that's not the player's fault. It's not saying, okay, the player was chosen by the coach. The coach might just not be good, and you have to give the player. The player is going to get a second opportunity because the contract demands it. But if Kingsbury goes, you're going to have to see what Kyler has under a new regime, right? Because if you're sitting here and saying that Kingsbury's not the guy, and that he could be very well the reason why this offense isn't good, then, and we have seen flashes out of Kyler in his career in terms of athletic ability.
We've seen flashes out of every quarterback in the world.
Fair, but the point that I'm saying is, the contract being the worst in NFL history, it remains to be seen. There's been some bad contracts, really bad contracts.
I'm just saying, the money, the guarantees, everything that was
Albert
involved.
Hainsworth got like $100 million.
That started the entire bad contract conversation with the world. But I'm saying right now, it just does not seem like this dude cares. I don't know. Again, I mean, the fact that there was at one point a study clause in his contract and then it was taken out. I'm like, seems
it's not a good look, and it's been bad from the start. And I think the worst thing that Cliff Kingsbury has done. Is it Cliff? I keep on getting this
It's
wrong.
Cliff.
It's Cliff. Is there a Kyle Kingsbury that played quarterback?
That's Kyle
too?
Shanahan.
No, I'm pretty sure a Kyle Kingsbury does exist, and he played quarterback.
I'll look it up
Texas
just because. Wow, we're going really. All right, so Kyle Kingsbury.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
Yeah, so we'll keep talking. Yeah, but because I think that
he's a mixed martial artist. He's not a quarterback.
All right, there we go. So I was right. There is a Kingsbury. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, there's also Jeff Smith.
There are several Kingsburys, apparently. But this one's not a good football coach.
No, he's not, and it's time to go.
Ties it all together. All right, how about topical stuff here? Because I feel like we ran this Monday night game into the ground.
Yes, the Monday night game has been run into the ground. Congrats to the Niners and their fan base. You guys look pretty good right now. Looks pretty good heading into Thanksgiving and going forward. As for the Cardinals, not so much. So let's go around the NFL, all right? Because what we have had done on this show in the past, obviously weeks, is that we're always like, all right, go long, go short, go long, go short. But we really don't cover the in the now stuff that's happening in breaking news that really affects the Mojo market. And we start with a Kyle Pitts. Clearly, it's so defeating because there's so many people rooting for this dude to come on board and be the tight end that everybody said he was going to be. Chris, I'm here to tell you that it might not happen either in Atlanta or with that entire system. I don't know. But now the injury, he's out for the year. It's a bad season for Kyle Pitts. Since draft day, just giving you a number right here, you see it. Since draft day, he's down 22% from his start. So it's just and that's no multipliers or anything like that. That's just raw numbers. I don't know, man. Maybe he's not as generational as people thought. I mean, there's people out there that were touted to be very, very, very good in college.
Of course.
And they were supposed to be very, very, very good in the NFL and didn't pan out. Does Kyle Pitts now fall into that little conversation?
I have a hard time going there because
I know what you're going to say. Just maybe I'll predict this wrong. But you're going to say there's flashes. There's flashes of greatness.
There's a couple reasons, and I'm going to say why, is because typically, and we've had this conversation about tight ends in the past, where I've mentioned, it might even have been in a Kyle Pitts conversation, where I pointed out the top 10 seasons of all time by a rookie tight end, and Kyle Pitts is firmly entrenched in that top 10. And in fact, I think he's in the top 3, personally, right? So when we're talking, he has the most yardage ever by a rookie tight end. So saying that he's not a generational talent based off of a bad season with an offense that does not throw the ball specifically towards him, right? And it's a system thing, it's a scheme thing. So maybe for that reason, it's a bad fit. But tight ends take some time, and he has an injury right now. We have seen games this season. Now, this season has been abysmal, but Kyle Pitts has had games this season where he looked like he could be the guy, right? And certainly in the second half last year, he more so than anything looked like he was the guy. So I'm looking at about 25 game sample of Kyle Pitts right now, and I'm saying, okay, he's a rookie tight end. How many yards does he have? 13, 14, 1,500? I'm looking at that as, wow, that might be the most of all time through 25 games. So while he's not on the field right now, and the expectations maybe were way too high on a kid that really plays a position that's not easy in the NFL to really get good at.
All right, keep going, sorry.
And like I said, him being drafted in third rounds of fantasy leagues, it sets the bar really high. So when your bar is that high in fantasy football, we kind of know how the Mojo market works in relation to that. Kyle Pitts' expectations were really high. He was drafted really high, so he's not living up to the draft status just yet in some ways, because really last year he did, right?
So you buying low on him right now?
I might wait a little bit because I don't think he's going to go up anytime soon. So
I'm not sitting on the bench now. I mean, he's done.
Yeah, so I'm not going to necessarily put my funds in Kyle Pitts right now, but sometime throughout this season or off season there, for that matter, I will probably invest a little buy low on Kyle Pitts, because if you thought Kyle Pitts was the man, nothing really that I've seen up to this point hasn't shown me that he is, other than the fact that I think Arthur Smith doesn't know how to use his tight end.
I'm okay with that theory. Anyway.
But wait a little bit, because there's money to be made on other aspects of football
Another
right now.
surprise move from a very, very bad team. Melvin Gordon was cut yesterday, and of course there is landing spots for him. There is a potential that he could be a Chief, a Saint. There's places that there's already rumors, but for Melvin Gordon to get cut, I had Anthony pull up his numbers for the year. I mean, I could have did this too, but Anthony's really good at what he does. I believe that. 90 rushes.
The one-man research team.
He really is. Right. He is the research team. 318 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32 targets, 25 catches. Fumbling issues is what happened with Melvin Gordon. And for them to find a fall guy on a very bad team, I feel like Melvin Gordon shouldn't have been the guy.
Fall guy or
fall guy?
Favor. I think this happens more often than you think in the NFL. The Broncos season is over. Melvin Gordon, his contract isn't necessarily going to hurt them because he signed the 1-year deal. No reason to keep him in town. Let's see what we got. And the only thing that I'll say is, I don't think Melvin Gordon goes in anywhere where he's going to hurt the Denver Broncos, because the Denver Broncos, you can't kill what's already dead. They're dead, right? You can't hurt them. He's not going to be on a 2-year deal.
So he's not anymore.
And he's not the generational type of player at this point in his career, at least, that is going to burn you next year. I firmly believe that Melvin Gordon, we know of a running back in the AFC West that was injured very recently that I think would be a big upgrade over a Clyde Edwards-Helaire if the Kansas City Chiefs decided to bring Melvin Gordon into town, stay in the division. He doesn't have to move all that far. Kansas City and Denver aren't that far, right? So he gets a new place, new apartment in Kansas City. And I think it's a great fit. They would be using him at the goal line. I know that they got the Pacheco project happening right now, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he hasn't lived up to it anyway, and he's been injured. Now he is injured. He's like a smaller Devontae Freeman. I just don't think he's the guy.
Decent comparison. I like that.
I forgot who told me that. Somebody told me that.
Oh, all right. That was an original thought. All right. But anyway, Melvin Gordon's, his stock price goes down a little bit via this transaction that went down yesterday. And again, he'll probably land somewhere. You can't assume
Melvin Gordon lands on a contender.
And if that's the case, it'll go. It'll go.
Philly?
Stop.
Philly was in on all these backs.
Stop.
If you don't think Philly, Buffalo, Buffalo,
the rich get richer over there. They spend $1 trillion on their defensive line because
Philly, Buffalo, KC,
Buffalo, KC,
Miami.
They get 16 running backs over there.
Exactly.
Why not a 17?
If there's a running back that could. You
think the coach has got you got any more of them running backs? I just itching for another running back. All right, moving on. There is a lot of news surrounding this individual who hasn't played it down in 2022. We're not talking about Jameson Williams yet. We will in a second. But OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, here's this story. Here's the scoop. Right now, he's apparently a week away from activity, football related. They said late November, early December. So here we are. We're in that window.
He's basically the Cowboys-Giants game away.
He's basically the Cowboys. There is a Odell Beckham on a pole match, if this is a wrestling match, on Thursday night, because it seems to me from all sources, that the narrowed down team search is down to the Giants and the Cowboys. I say, why? You have all these teams, right? You have the Chiefs that are still reeling over there. You have Buffalo, who would love to add another receiver. The Rams are completely dead in the water, so it's like that's not a relevant thing. But now all of a sudden the Cowboys, every single player on the roster has made a pitch for this guy, right? They're saying do the right thing. So it's almost as if if Odell doesn't choose the Cowboys, there is going to be a blood feud between Odell and the rest of the Cowboy players. But the Giants are involved. And right now, they lose Wan'Dale Robinson. We saw that via Mojo yesterday. Wan'Dale Robinson out for the year. What's the other receiver that's gone for the year already? Not Slayton, the other one.
Kadarius Toney.
Well, Toney got traded. Why can't Ant? Sterling Shepard. Okay, he's a Giants fan. So he's out for the year. And the turf has been like the literally, people call it the turf monster. It's living up to the name over there in New York. But what I will say is, where does OBJ land? How effective can he be? Last year, on 8 games played with the Rams, 48 targets, 27 catches, 305 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a Super Bowl ring. Technically, I guess. Yes. Super Bowl ring.
Very big role.
Very big role. Where does he land? How does this affect his market? Right now, he's up over the course of his career, he's up 68%. So obviously, people are like, all right, he'll be good. And then he makes the one-handed catch and he gets to cover Madden and everything goes happen, the rest of history. And then now, $16.23. Seems like he's right there, right in the mix. Is it a good investment right now to get him now before he signs, or wait until he signs?
I'm going to re-look at this real quick. Honestly, I think that there's a lot of wolf tickets surrounding Odell right now, like major wolf tickets. He's talking about it's narrowed down to 2 teams. There is a 0% chance that he's signing with the Giants.
Tell me you want to be mentioned on Thanksgiving's broadcast
0%
without
chance.
Telling me you want to.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm for Odell to be able to create a little bit of a market for himself. His agent and him have been having fun all off season. They had fun with it not all off season, but yeah, honestly, it was all off season. He started having fun with it. As soon as he realized that, okay, I'm not back with the Rams, I'm a free agent again. He had fun with it last season, first and foremost. But he sees that the Giants are playing the Cowboys, and he knows that both teams have been kind of lobbying for him. It's a divisional matchup on Thanksgiving. And the guy loves attention, which I can't blame him, right? He's a wide receiver in the NFL.
He's going to show up on the float for the Jonas Brothers.
It's no surprise that Odell likes people, to give him attention.
Can you imagine that, though? The Jonas Brothers are doing a halftime show, and maybe they're doing their little dance, right? Then there's like a cake in the middle of the thing,
I would imagine the game's on Fox.
out.
Odell's the one on the sideline giving out the turkey legs, and, But I don't think that...
Can you imagine the turkey legs have like logos on them? Like, I don't know what turkey legs. I don't think
the Giants, when you look at their schedule, when you look at the Giants' schedule moving forward,
brutal.
And then you look at the quarterback situation, and I understand that Daniel Jones is having a really good year, right? He definitely is. But do you really want to catch passes from Daniel Jones down the stretch in that offense?
Hell, I don't.
I do not. Do you really want to go and play 2 or 3 home games in the Meadowlands right now
where everybody's getting
after you blew your knee out several times in your career? I don't think that's what Odell wants to do. I see Dallas as a real possible destination, but if I'm automatically eliminating the Giants, you would imagine that I'm saying, well, it's definitely Dallas then, because that's what he narrowed it down to. But I don't believe a word when it comes to the media unless Odell tweets out something.
It's like you're putting that bad mojo on this whole situation.
Well, no, I'm not.
I'm going to wake up on Friday. Black Friday sales, everybody.
I really do.
Odell signs with Green Bay.
If it comes down, no, that's out. If it comes down to the Giants or the Cowboys, I'd say it's 100% the Cowboys. No questions asked. The schedule going forward is easier. Just across the board, the Cowboys are in a better position this year. Defensively, they have a better running game, I think. Even though you could say Saquon, I think the Cowboys have a better...
complete running game.
Complete total package on offense. They're not so reliant on one player.
So anyway,
actually, they are. Tony Pollard.
Are you in now on an Odell Beckham knowing that he's about to sign? So meaning... while his price is today's price, it might spike when he signs.
I think that's the underlying point here when we're talking about some of these guys outside Kyle Pitts. We just talked about Melvin Gordon. He's at a low right now. If he signs with a contender, just on the news that he signs with a team that's going to use him, and he's probably going to play some playoff games and maybe even a touchdown in the Super Bowl or something like that. Yeah, like I'm in on a Melvin Gordon right now. Same way we saw somebody invest heavily in a Eno Benjamin. I think there's even a better investment because there's no questions asked that he's going to end up on a contender. And OBJ, as soon as they get the news that he does sign, he's going to handpick a contender. I think the worst spot for him to be in would be the Giants, but even still, there would be a lot of buzz behind that, and I think people would get behind it. I think there's dark horses here. It's Buffalo, Philly, and I think really the chances that we see him as a Chief are strong. I think that's where he ends up. I think
your prediction right now is Odell Beckham to the Chiefs
or the Bills.
I mean, that's...
And don't
Von
be
Miller's
surprised,
already gone out there and said,
don't be
we're
surprised if we're talking about the Giants and we're talking about Dallas, there is a 0% chance that Philly is not getting involved. Like, in other words, they are 100% going to at least throw their name in the hat.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't like it. Anyway,
if it's a one-year deal and it's like...
It's not going to be a one-year deal, though. It's not. He's looking for 3. He's looking for a 3-year deal, 100%. There's no way in shape or form. Why would he sign somewhere now... and then just be a free agent again in March?
If it's not going to be a one-year deal, and it's not going to be I can tell you this: if you say it's not going to be a 1-year deal, I will also guarantee it's not a 3-year deal.
I'll tell you right. I'll meet you in the middle. What's going to be is going to be a 2-year deal with an option for a team option for third. Or player option for third, or something to that crap.
I think a team could potentially throw a ton of money at him for the remainder of this season. Let's say $6 million, right, for the rest of this year. You notice how I said 6?
Yeah, because we already went over those numbers.
All Dallas and Philly have
right
now.
Yep.
So if he gets $6 million the rest of this year, and that's double the rest of the remaining contract for this year, and then he gets to revisit the free agency after a potential playoff run, I think that's good business. And I think that you're seeing.
I don't like it.
What you're seeing is you're just trying to, they're posturing right now, but it doesn't matter what he wants. Like, no NFL team right now coming off his second ACL, needing to see him play.
You got to see all the medicals and all that other stuff.
I think it would be a better situation for Odell and to get paid more to go prove it for a little bit.
We'll see.
At $6 million.
We shall see. Moving on real quick, brush it over real quick, just in case if you forgot his name, is Jameson Williams. And we've talked about him since the show has started. Its inception. That was one of our first guys, bargain basements, super duper low price. It's time. I think it's time. The practice will start seeing some action. I think this guy is going to start, getting on the field, getting back to normal. And what's been touted by everybody else is that this dude is the best receiver in this class. So right now, Chris, yes. I mean, you've held on to his stock.
I hate the Detroit Lions, and I love Jameson Williams.
So
I can't help it.
Get involved on Jameson Williams. I know that was a brush over, but again, that's the kind of guy.
We've talked about him, but we know that we've talked about the news is about to break. It did break. He's back at practice. He probably won't play on Thanksgiving.
No.
I don't think that's a possibility, but rest assured he will be in that lineup next week.
Another 10-day break, yeah. That's a possibility.
I think it makes the most sense to keep him out of this game, even if he's ready to go, and then give him that extra 10 days. Make sure you're confident because if they win this game, then you can start having that conversation about the Lions making some noise, but they're not going to beat Buffalo on Thanksgiving.
I think they might. Don't throw stuff at me for that. Jesus. Bro. All right, anyway, you could do that. You can not throw stuff at me, and you can follow Mojo. You can actually do that. You can go over on the social medias and head over to the Instagram, the Twitter, and the TikTok at Mojo. And, of course, join the conversation. Conversations like this that we have every day on this show can happen over on the Discord. So Discord, look up Mojo on the Discord. And, of course, mojo.com for all your blogs and all your literally up to the minute scrolling as you see on the bottom of your screen. That's straight off mojo.com. That is the active market right now as it opens every morning at 9 o'clock in the morning. So for that, we got one more show before the Thanksgiving holiday. We'll preview all 3 games tomorrow, right? That makes sense. 3 games tomorrow. Guys, we should look at tomorrow and to Thanksgiving. And, of course, may even squeeze in something else for you guys, the viewer. So, for Dave Sturchio, Chris Gueci, this has been another episode of the Mojo Market Report. We'll see you guys back here on a Wednesday.